I'm Justin Boyd.
I'm sad once again.
I'm sad too, but for different reasons. But I'm Tristan Jones.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today or tonight to provide a live reaction to the season finale of The Last of Us Season 2. It was actually episode 7 titled Convergence. And what a finale it was. Like I said, we just watched it, just ended like 20 minutes ago. I know Brittany and I are still in shock. Tristan obviously has a little bit more of a heads up having played the game, but let's just start off with overall thoughts. Brittany, I'll go to you first. What'd you think about the season finale of Last of Us Season 2?
Overall, I was kind of like, all right, this is not paying off to be the finale that in my mind I was building up in my head. I thought there was going to be like a big boss. I thought there was going to be like something major that was going to happen. And we're getting like little bits of what major things are occurring for different factions. Wolf or WLF, sorry, the Seraphites, Ellie, her riff with Jesse, and there's little things that are happening simultaneously, right? But for me, nothing was really paying off until we get to the Seattle Aquarium, when we get back to the theater, and I'm just like, I'm left just sort of I said in our group chat, I'm like, I'm mad. Like, I'm mad at how it ended because damn it, these cliffhangers are crazy, like so crazy. And then to cut to black on the big major thing that happened, and then you see a character not in the state that we last saw her in, but we're back in Seattle day one. And I'm like, oh wow, what a way to just leave you hanging for season 3, which, as I'm sure you all have seen online, that season 3 is going to be focusing on Abby and her story. So while we got the story of Ellie, Dina, and everything that went on in Seattle days 1 through 3, pretty sure we're going to get something very similar for Abby come next season.
Yeah, Tristan, what do you think?
For me, I was talking with Brittany before we got on, like, looking at this episode and just the way, when I looked at the trailer, I was like, okay, it looks just based on that a lot of what's happening in this finale are going to be things that are kind of moved around in the game. So after watching this episode, I would say like 10 to 20% of it, I kind of knew what was happening. Like, obviously at this point in the game, like we're still in Seattle, you know, you do get like a side Jesse and Ellie mission. You do get the rendezvous back, you know, at the theater with, you know, all 4 of them. There was so much in this episode that I had no clue what was happening. So I was able to experience it like I'm assuming you two did, just with no kind of foreshadow of what was going to happen until we got to the end. That part is pretty parallel to the game. There is no fate. There is no like just complete black shot. Like, there's no Sopranos here, you know. You know, in the game. So I have just as good a guess as you all on how we start season 3. But man, this episode made me feel things. Number 1, 2. I said this earlier in the season, like, we're going to see a shift change in Ellie, the character, and the way we feel about Ellie. All that stuff is going to change because you see the culmination of like this downshift of like her psyche, essentially, like her losing her humanity. And she becomes a character like that you get frustrated with. Like, this was the first episode really that I was like fully back into the game, where obviously you're in the Ellie POV for a lot of the game, but you're like, why the fuck are we doing this? This is dumb, Ellie. It's like, this is really dumb, but like, you're forced to go along with it and kind of empathize. So I say all that to say, like, they landed the plane in a way that I just simply didn't, think about it, because I'm used to like the game and its structure, and they completely went away from it. And I think they did a great job. So can't wait to talk about it.
And because Tristan shared with me before we jumped on the pod here, by the way, shout out to Yesenia, who's in our chat. We appreciate you being here. She says, oh, wow, what a finale. And yes, indeed, it was quite the finale. Tristan saying that about 20% of what occurred in this episode was from the video game directly. It's like, oh, now we've kind of gone back to season 6 of Game of Thrones, where we've run out of material and they're just kind of taking the reins and just running with the story, to which Justin at the very end of it was like, I cannot, no, it was at the end of season 5. I cannot recommend the show to you anymore.
Well,
that's kind of how I feel at this point.
But that was not because it wasn't a good show. It's because they killed off Jon Snow, or at least I thought he was killed.
Well, that's kind of what it looks like happened here, Justin.
Well,
and season 6 is one of the best seasons of television.
Arguably the best season of Game of Thrones.
Arguably. I'm a season 4
but
guy.
We're not here to talk about that.
But like season 7 and 8 is where the problems arose with the lack of source material. And I think Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann, like together, like you can tell like there's a true collaboration there.
Oh yes.
Like their visions of the story. That I gave them the trust because they've kind of earned it to this point, that they were going to land the plane knowing that they were going to switch the narrative, because obviously this season was only 7 episodes. So some things are going to get stripped down. Some things are going to get, kind of maximized. Like we see more of the Jesse storyline. We get to know who he is and kind of feel more about him before, unfortunately, he meets his very quick end. But yeah, I trusted them to be able to land this plane, man, in a way that I don't trust David Benoit and Weiss. Like they lost that trust, especially as you said after season 5. So yeah.
To me, the difference with this compared to Game of Thrones is with Last of Us, you have Neil Druckmann, the creator, working hand in hand, day to day almost on this show. And like I said, we're reacting live right after the episode ended. I didn't catch who directed the episode, but I mean, Neil Druckmann directed episode 6.
It wasn't him. It
was a woman. I forgot. She was after the episode.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Right. I did watch that part, but I didn't catch her name. But what I'm saying is, like, Neil Druckmann is very much involved in the show, whereas George R.R. Martin wasn't necessarily. He was kind of involved, kind of not. Yeah, like an advisor role. So, but no, I thought this finale, even before we got to the fade to black scene, which I thought was a very shocking scene, I thought it was a very strong finale. But I think, like Tristan said, like I kept looking at the clock and going, oh, it's only a 50-minute episode. It's not the longest episode of the season by any stretch. I mean, it's kind of average compared to the rest of them, but it was kind of going along, and I was like, there hasn't really been a major moment. I mean, there are big things that happen. We're going to go through all of them, but then you get to that fade to black scene, which I think we should just start off with that. Brittany, let's walk us through what happened in that scene where, I mean, literally since episode 2, when Abby and her crew killed Joel, we've been kind of leading up to Ellie getting her revenge on Abby. And I think probably a lot of people thought, who are just show watchers, that this is where they're going to go face to face. And they do very briefly, but we get Ellie's journey to meet Abby, which we're going to go through. But let's talk about the final scene when Jesse meets his untimely end. I mean, what a shocking death for Jesse. I mean, damn, like that he's a great actor. And I thought for sure he was going to make it to the next season, especially after what just happened. But let's talk about the end of the episode.
So first and foremost, Jesse was not the character that I thought would die this particular episode. And jury's out, at least for now, as to what happened to Ellie, because Abby did turn her gun on Ellie. And I have to pose this question of, how the hell did Abby find them so fast? How did she track them so fast back to the theater? And also, where's Dina? Like, where is Dina about all this? I'm like, did she do a double cross? Like, what is happening here? I'm very concerned about all this. But to your point, Justin, after the events of what happened at the Seattle Aquarium, which by the way I've been to, the Ellie has come face to face with Owen and Mel. They're having a disagreement of some kind, and Owen makes a move for his gun, to which Ellie reacts, shoots him, kills him. But apparently the the bullet ricocheted off the metal door behind Mel. It's what's the word I'm looking for? Slices her on her neck.
Yeah.
She's bleeding out. She falls to the floor, reveals that she's pregnant. Holy crap.
Yeah.
And in showing how Ellie has just gone so far in her revenge to take down everyone that worked with Abby for the sake of Joel, she's killed an innocent in which of Mel's baby, even though Mel does try to tell her like how to get the baby out, but she's fading quickly. And the full realization of Ellie is, oh my God, I've gone too far. There's, how do you come back from this? Right. And so when they're back at the theater, it's Tommy and Jesse who found Ellie, brought her back. They're trying to plan about the best way to get out of Seattle to get back home to Jackson. Tommy walks away. Ellie shares a moment with Jesse about, thanks for coming back for me. He's like, what if I didn't want to? And she's like, well, did you? And he's like, no. He goes, I did, because Tommy didn't force him at all to go get Ellie back. And there had been like a rift between the two of them earlier about all that. And that's why I'm saying this just really poorly. But basically, Ellie acknowledges that Jesse is a good person, right? And he puts community and others before himself. But he did make a comment to Ellie that if the roles were reversed, that Ellie would set the world on fire in order to save Jesse or to get revenge on Jesse and what have you. And you hear commotion outside of the theater room that they're in. They run out, and Jesse, my God, bursts through that door, and a gunshot bursts. He's shot in the face and he goes down hard. That is the end of Jesse. And it's in this episode that he learns that Dina is pregnant with his child. He wants to do whatever it takes in order to keep himself alive, Dina and the baby alive, get back home to Jackson. And that is never going to happen at this point. But then the fact that Abby, again, who is the one who shot Jesse in the face, she's got Tommy on the floor pointing a gun at him, turns to Ellie, who's, hands up in the air. She's like, I'm the one you want. And you see, like, we've come full circle with Ellie, right? She realizes just Abby is just the other side to Ellie, basically. She's doing the exact same thing that Ellie was doing this whole entire time. Abby pulls the gun on Ellie, looks like she shoots. Ellie, cries out, no, please, and cuts to black. And we go back to Abby, day one of Seattle at Mariner Stadium. Damn.
Yeah, Tristan, I was going to ask you, as a big sports guy, was that the Mariner Stadium or was that the Seahawks Stadium? Honestly,
I think it was the Seahawks Stadium.
Think
That's
so?
actually what I meant to say.
Yeah.
I do know my Seattle sports, though.
Well, I mean, I don't know how close they're together, but they're both, I think they're both, the Mariners Stadium is retractable. I think it's T-Mobile Park.
Yeah, so T-Mobile.
Yeah.
Park.
Yeah.
And
So
Seattle is now the Lumen Field or something like that. But
right.
at the time of the game, it would have been, I think it had a different name.
Yeah, it definitely did. Yeah. Okay, so you think it's where the Seahawks play?
Yeah, I think he's right.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah, but damn, what a freaking ending. Tristan, your thoughts on that and how it compares to the video game?
Yeah, so the ending is about 98% of the game. Essentially, when they're all four, when Dina, Tommy, Jesse, and Ellie are in the theater, that's the part where we start to get like a parallel to the game. That's when I knew Jesse. I was like, damn, Jesse. Because I was hoping like he could at least get to season 3 and maybe the same scene. Like I was hoping that it would kind of cut off there with them about to go back to Jackson, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. Yeah, this is pretty much the same. The only difference is that when Abby shoots, there's somebody steps in. We'll talk about. I don't want to spoil that, but there is no fade to black moment. So we know exactly what happens after. But there is I do like that there's a natural transition into Abby's point of view, because in the game in Last of Us 2, you kind of go back and forth, right? Like you start the game literally off in Abby's perspective, you move to Ellie for so much of the game, and then you just kind of alternate a lot until you get to the end where it gets like really, really, really tricky and really awkward. But I do like the way they're setting up season 3, and like, okay, now we see what Abby did, the choices she had to make that she probably does not agree with, and go against a lot of what she hopes about herself as a person in order to get to that point. But you were right, Brittany. Like these Ellie and Abby are completely like mirrors of each other. Like they both have the same motivations. And it both leads them to like actions that just go against like the core of them as humans, them as like the good people that they think. Like it goes against a lot of compassion that both Abby and Ellie show in so many different ways. But it's a very tragic ending because of what happens to Jesse, not just because we get to learn more about Jesse and like care more about him as a character, but it's the culmination of like all of Ellie's decision making. Like she's had so many opportunities to walk away from this and like to demonstrate the forgiveness that she was on the way to showing like in the theater before Abby got to Tommy, and she just never really got the chance to like really act on that, and it cost Jesse his life, and Jesse, the way that Jesse has been presented, I mean, he's presented the same way in the game. Like he's a very mature figure, even though he's only a few years older than Ellie and Dina, but he's presented as this really mature figure, somebody who can see the forest from the trees, who can think long term and not just like with these short term instincts that a lot of people, a lot of the kids around that time get, especially when you lose like people that are close to you. You want to, avenge and avenge and avenge. And Jesse is like, he's shown like, okay, I'm willing to do whatever it takes for the people that I love and I care about, but like not at all costs. Like I have to think beyond just myself and these selfish instincts. And the show is presenting Jesse as a juxtaposition of Ellie, who's, you can argue she does the things she does for like noble intentions, but like she also puts so many people in danger because of those intentions. And like the impact of those intentions kind of drowns out the intentions to a degree. And it's like, hey, Ellie, please, this is a figure for you to listen to. Like take this, and like at every cost, she's like, no, actually I'm driven by my own intrinsic motivations. And it is going to dictate her actions going forward, no matter the cost. So what happened to Jesse was tragic for so many different reasons. Most of all because it just shows us how far Ellie has like devolved as a person.
So I have a question for y'all as well as those in the chat. Shout out to King B. Johnson for being here as well. Did Jesse redeem himself at all after learning that he voted no to Ellie's proposal about taking a small group to Seattle to hunt down the group that killed Joel? Because see, I said after we saw that episode of the council and the voting, and I'm like, I wasn't convinced that Jesse voted yes. I absolutely was not convinced. And if y'all don't believe me, go back and watch that episode. But I was like, I want him to say yes, but I don't think he did.
I mean, I don't really remember what I thought at the time, but I'm not surprised that he voted no. I mean, he explains why. Like he's basically, he chooses community over selfish interests. So I understand that. As far as him being redeemed, in a certain respect, I don't know that he needed to be redeemed for that decision, because he
it cost him his life. Ultimately,
it cost him his life, but I mean, had he voted yes, I don't know that it
would have been any different.
Yeah, it might have been the same thing.
Tristan, thoughts?
I also don't think he needed redemption. I thought he made a completely logical decision. There's no part of me, honestly, that felt like he did vote yes, honestly. Yeah. Just kind of knowing who Jesse is as a character, like his way of thinking, his philosophy on community and like order. Like again, Jesse, we can tell even from the few episodes we've seen of him, like he's somebody willing to do what's necessary, but like he also considers the consequences of those things.
Yeah.
And he's a risk taker, but like it depends on the risk. Like he's somebody who's been groomed for leadership, and like these are the things that leaders have to think about. These are the traits leaders have to have in order to be effective. And there's a reason why he was groomed for leadership. Like he's super capable, super smart, and considers the needs of the many over the few. Like, and those are just kind of non-starters. So
yeah,
I absolutely thought that he would vote no. And I think that he's also somebody who can stand on his decisions, even with somebody as like bullheaded as Ellie. So if you can do that, redemption is not something that you're necessarily looking for. It's more of a let me kind of burst this bubble of you believing that I voted for you because we share the same thirst for revenge. And it's like, no, I want revenge because revenge is the logical thing, not necessarily because it's the most sound decision.
Yeah, I think, you know, in the last moment we see him with Ellie, you know, their relationship is very strained, and we see that kind of play out through this episode. I think in the theater, they kind of reach kind of a common ground where they have respect for each other. They both admit that they would do whatever it takes to help the other. And who's to say if Abby doesn't go to the theater, that maybe Ellie go with Dina and Tommy and Jesse and Tobe, they pack up and make their plan, get out of Seattle, head back to Jackson. I mean, I feel like that's what's going to happen if Abby doesn't, you know, discover them at the theater. So I think that maybe Ellie, even though she's so determined to get revenge after what happened in this journey to get to Abby, maybe she realizes that there's much more to lose than there is to gain by trying to kill this one person.
I mean, she almost dies herself. Like,
yeah,
the universe is telling her, like, hey, bro,
stop.
I know what you want, but like, we're going to put you through literal hell just to get there.
Yeah.
And she just refuses. Like, Ellie is one determined individual.
Yeah.
The sequence with her getting on the little boat, and you see that wave come up against her, and she capsizes, washes up on the shore, and it happens to be on the side where the Seraphites reside, right? Little boy sees her, takes off to tell someone. You hear the whistles. Two men come and get her, drag her inside, more into their territory, and you see a noose. They are going to hang her and rip her guts out. And it was like in that instant, I'm like, oh my God, this is how it ends for her that quickly? Jesus, like, oh my God. And then of course, because we knew that WLF and Isaac were headed out to take on the Seraphites head on, you hear other alarms going off for the Seraphites, and the woman in charge basically says, leave her, dude, you know, let's go of the rope. And Ellie falls, and everyone takes off running further into the forest, and she's able to get away. And I'm like, okay, like, yeah, you were blessed, you know, she has blessed you. Turn around and go home. But no, she still wants to find Abby inside the aquarium, take her out, and be done with it. And even when she did not encounter Abby inside the aquarium, right? It wasn't, I mean, you could kind of figure out like, okay, this is going to be like a repeat of Nora sort of situation, but it just quickly goes south, just really, really badly for an innocent, right? Because even Mel, I say Mel is an innocent to a degree because she sedated Dina. She didn't hold Ellie down to watch Joel die. She really was uncomfortable with the whole operation as it was. And then we learn that she's pregnant, and then they both die. And it's war is hell, man. War is hell. Revenge is hell. And yeah, like those little instances, you capsized out in the water, you almost got hung by a faction who didn't want to listen to reason. They're just like, hey, you're not one of us, therefore you're gonna die. I mean, and I liked how the breakdown of the episode with production talked about how the sense of community is what's wrong, because everyone has a different idea about community and what they will do for the community, and it's a problem. It's a problem.
Yeah, and Tristan, I want to get your thoughts on. Brittany touched on the Seraphites, almost the near hanging of Ellie, and I as a watcher in that moment, I was like, how the hell is she going to get out of this? Because I didn't think she was going to die there, but I was like, I don't see how she gets out of this. Luckily for her, there's a disturbance at their village. I guess the WLF has attacked, and so they just let her go. What is that like in the video game? Is that a big part of the game, or is that in the game at all? That kind of
No, this is completely a show invention.
Okay.
They did talk about it after the episode about how there was like a deleted scene essentially where in the game where Ellie on her way to the aquarium gets stuck on the island with the Seraphites in the midst of this war between them and the WLF, but they took that out. So like this does not happen in the game. I could like clarify that, but like I don't want to spoil it. I think what's going to happen in season 3 is that's actually an Abby thing. Like Abby is the one who eventually gets on the island.
And I'm glad you said that, Tristan. Sorry to interrupt, but I did notice in that last scene with Abby when she's yelling at Ellie saying, I let you live, she had a pretty decent burn mark around her neck, and it looks like she herself may have been strangled or hung by the Seraphites. It looks like she's had a rough time herself, because we learned in this episode from was it Park, who is part of WLF, that she had not been heard from since the day before, and I wonder if perhaps that was the reason why, because even Owen and Mel hadn't heard from her, or they knew of a plan and one was for it, the other one was it, and it's like, was Abby going after the Seraphites? Like what's the deal? Because it seemed like Abby was deemed to lead WLF when and if Isaac dies. So it's like, what is she doing? What's her side quest look like?
Well, first, another parallel between her and Ellie, because if you remember in season 1, one of the federal officers at the school she was at told her she was somebody who they were grooming for leadership. So
you're right.
Ellie and Abby, essentially same person, different lives.
Two sides of the same coin. Wow.
Exactly. But yeah, like I said, like this, Abby has just as Ellie and Dina and Jesse and Tommy, Abby has a very, very eventful 3 days in Seattle. And there's some things happening. Obviously, we can tell from the finale, there's some things happening with her and the WLF that lead her to like a slightly different journey. But yeah, like I said, like this is completely a show invention. So we don't, even in the game, like you don't see Ellie that close to death. I didn't know what was going to happen to get her out of that situation. Like I said, because it's something that doesn't happen in the game. So I was worried, man. That was a point where my heart was beating like very, very, very fast. But it does make sense, because one thing that is brought from the game is that there is an incoming like clash between the WLF and the Seraphites on that island. It's one of the more like visually stunning parts of the game. So I can't wait to like go back and kind of watch another playthrough of it. But yeah, like there's some, like, again, before we get to the theater at the end, there's so much of this episode that is completely invented for the show. And it all makes sense, but like that was one of them where I was like, okay, I have no clue on how Ellie is getting out of this.
Yeah, I think it's really a smart move to the way the episode ended, and to basically teased that season 3 is going to be about Abby's journey, or for her 3 days in Seattle, because much of the season, since the end of episode 2, when Abby and her crew killed Joel, I know I've kind of posed the question, like, when are we going to see Abby again? This is kind of weird that you bring in this pretty well known actress, and we haven't seen her since that part. And so I think it's a really good idea that next season, or whenever next season happens, we get to see her journey for those 3 days. But I also enjoyed the fact that, like, they've been telling us it's like, oh, Seattle day 1, Seattle day 2, Seattle day 3, but they don't make a huge deal of it. So I'm glad that we get some kind of payoff with that. And I'm not surprised, because this show is very well made, but I did like the fact that, okay, this does have a meaning besides just kind of giving us a random idea of when this is taking place in relation to, like, what happened 5 years ago between, the first 2 seasons. So very, very well, great ending as far as, like, teasing us for season 3. I did not catch the fact that she had a burn mark on her neck. So that's good eyes by y'all to notice that. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what's coming next season. And I guess we'll kind of get the reverse of this season, where we're only going to get Ellie maybe in whenever they pick up to the point in the theater, and we see, what happens with that gunshot. Does Abby shoot Ellie? Does someone else maybe shoot Abby? Which that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping maybe someone else shoots Abby, or something happens. She misses with her shot or something. But we'll get to that next season. But great ending for this episode.
I also have to say, because I've been very concerned about this character that we haven't seen in several episodes, our girl Shimmer is okay. Not that Ellie asked. You ungrateful bitch. But I'm glad to know that Shimmer is alive and well for now. I don't need to hear about what happens to her in the game, but I'm glad she's okay.
Yeah. Shimmer didn't make it this far in the game.
Shut up.
Sorry.
Let me have my moment. I don't want to see animals being harmed, okay?
She didn't make it to day 2.
Damn it.
In Seattle.
Damn. Jeez. No, I'm hoping, like, once we get the story from Abby's POV and we get hopefully what will be the conclusion of her turning the gun to Ellie. Ellie's like begging, no. I'm thinking, okay, is Dina gonna pop up from somewhere and shoot Abby, or did he have like a weapon behind, like, somewhere hidden that he can turn around and shoot Abby? You know what I'm saying? Like, is Jesse going to be resurrected and he going to turn around and shoot Abby? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I was concerned. So let me talk about Dina for a little bit. Dina was the one that I was concerned was going to die this episode. And the reason being, because the episode prior to the penultimate, we saw that she got shot by a crossbow arrow right in the leg. Yeah. And so at the beginning of this episode, Jesse is with her in theater. He says if he pulls out the arrow, it's going to cut an artery. He's not going to be able to stop it. She's going to die, basically. Yeah. And she kept saying things like, I can't die. He sanitizes his hands and the arrow so that he can just shove the arrow through her leg. And he's like, here, take a drink. And she's like, I can't, I'm not going to. And these are all like little red flags, I guess, for Jesse, because he knows Dina very well. And when Ellie came back to the theater after having done what she did to Nora and is checking in on Dina obviously doesn't look well because of everything that she has endured. I'm guessing that wound is going to get infected because that's just the kind of life that they live in, post-apocalyptic. And even when Jesse and Ellie were leaving the next day, Dina comes to Ellie, gives her the bracelet, says, this is for good luck. Girl, it has not been good luck for you. What makes you think it's going to be good luck for Ellie? Just saying. And by extension, Jesse. But Dina just did not look well. And again, she's endured a lot. She's been shot. She's pregnant. And she's got a lot to deal with, having learned the truth from Ellie about what happened in Salt Lake City and why Abby and her crew came to look for Joel and what have you. So that's a lot. That's a lot happening. But she just didn't look well. I'm like, she's going to die. She's going to die. Like, this pregnant lady's going to die. It was just the wrong pregnant lady that I said was going to die because I didn't know about the other pregnant lady.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was, at some point I was like, would Dina do a double cross? You know, because again, I'm trying to figure out how Abby found them. You know, did she just, I mean, is she that great of a soldier and tracker, and she's going to find the people that she's looking for, right? Don't know.
I don't know. I think we'll get that answer in season 3, maybe.
Yeah.
I do want to get Tristan's thoughts on what was your kind of read on Dina's reaction to learning when Ellie tells Dina, like, here's what Joel did in Salt Lake City. And,
I mean, it's kind of a betrayal.
Yeah.
Because as Jesse continues to point out at literally every turn, like, this is a suicide mission.
Yeah.
And like, everybody, because they made the decision they made to leave, like, that puts Jesse and Tommy in danger because they have to be the ones to go save them. And for Dina, it's not knowing the full reason, the full justification for why. Like, maybe she makes a different decision if she knows, you know, what Joel did. You know, maybe there's a conversation to be had about this type of vengeance, you know, and is this vengeance worth the cost, you know, based on what he did? Like, obviously, you're going to feel a level of vengeance because of what Joel meant to all of them, the community. But like, at some point, that cycle of vengeance has to end. You know what I'm saying? Somebody has to be the one to stop it and say, okay, I'm going to be the one to forgive, if not forget. You know, just kind of understand, hey, this is the world that we're in. Like, shit happens. Like, everybody's losing somebody, you know, in some type of way. Like, we just continue that cycle of violence, then, you know, we just create more danger than we already have to live with. Like, we're already under the threat of infected every type of way, like raiders, yada yada. Like, at some point, this has to end. So it's just it's a betrayal of not getting the knowledge that she needed to like fully make the decision on joining this mission, even especially with the stakes being so high, right, because of the pregnancy. And you know, hey, like, you're not just putting yourself in danger, you're not just putting me in danger, but you're putting this child in danger. And I wish I had all the information before I made that. So yeah, that it does cause like a fracture in the relationship. It should, because again, it's another data point for Ellie to see, okay, the way she goes about things, communicating with people a lot, you know, all of the lying she does, similarly very easily, like, it's going to take a toll in some type of way. And it happened not just with Dina kind of losing some of that trust, but ultimately this lie ended up with Jesse dying. You know, like, there's it's a complete, like, you know, there's a complete rolling effect, right, of this happens and this happens. So yeah, I understand Dina's frustration, and she should be. Like, there's a level of betrayal there.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to point out to y'all, I'm not sure if you actually caught it, but when Jesse and Ellie are in the bookstore and Ellie goes over to the children's books and is looking through, and there's a lot of like bangers in there, right? You know, is your mama a llama, that kind of thing. But pulling out the book, the monster at the end of this book, and it has Sesame Street's Grover on there. Mm-hmm. It's an item of foreshadow, because like this episode focusing on Ellie and having to jump through obstacles to get to the end, in her case, finding Abby and potentially killing her, Ellie discovers that she truly is like the monster in all of this. And it's the actions of what happened at the aquarium that completely breaks her. And, you know, she could argue all she wants that the monster is Abby and the monster is someone else other than Ellie, but Ellie is absolutely the monster. So I thought that was like an interesting choice to incorporate into the show as a visual, right? There's a lot of little, like, I guess you'd call them Easter eggs, but that one, because I just remember that from like my childhood. And I had to look it up real quick just to make sure I was right about it. But it was a very well placed book and plot of that book to play out for this episode as well.
There was also something on the I think it's a bookstore wall where it said something about the morals or something, or depend on perspective or something. I may be totally misquoting that, but it
you're
was
talking about the hand painted the
right.
wall. Yeah.
Which
For sure.
back into play.
It's like all this stuff. Read the room, Ellie. Literally, read the fucking room.
I do, given how we know how the episode ends and what we think will be season 3. I do think it's interesting how we have these two characters, Abby and Ellie, on like a collision course, and everyone around them is just fodder, and they're being killed because of these two characters. And so it's really interesting to see how this will play out and continue. And maybe that's the whole point of they are the last of us, like it's, or, I don't know. Honestly, there are parts of this episode where when we got the Isaac scene where he's talking to the woman's, I think her name's Park, right?
Park.
Yeah. The way, they're like, oh, Abby is like the one, like she's the next leader.
She's the chosen one.
Yeah. I kind of like expected something to come out about how, like, is she also immune, much like Ellie? Are they like not only are they the same, same size of a different coin, or different sides of the same coin, but are they the same coin? Exactly. Are they the same person? I don't think that's going to be what happens, but I was kind of like leaning toward like maybe that's why they're so similar. That's why there's some of these paths that are ultimately leading to each other. Just
not at all.
Again, just a show watcher, just kind of like try to create my own headcanon for some of this stuff. I thought it could be plausible, but I think that what the story is going to do.
Tristan says no.
Yeah. I think it works better that way. But so much great stuff from this episode. My mind is kind of spinning with all the stuff that happened. Tristan, is there something else you want to mention while we're kind of just bouncing stuff around?
Ooh, I had so many thoughts while watching.
Hopefully nothing that's going to be spoilers, really.
No spoilers. I do want to kind of like point to a very specific scene when Ellie and Jesse are in the garage and they see the WLF converge on the Seraphite, and essentially like strip them naked and drag them out. I thought that was such an interesting scene. Again, another 90% of this finale was show invention. That's another one. To show while the monster in Ellie is like quickly and like developing, like there's still so much of that compassion there, because you understand, like it's so crazy because her monster is based on compassion, right? Like her love for Joel, her love for whatever small community she has, like just this feeling of wrong and right. Like she was that Seraphite. She was the person who needed saving, and somebody saved her. So like she feels that same empathy. She wants to return that, even though, again, here's the other side of Ellie, is even though like doing so would put her and Jesse, and by proxy Dina and Tommy, in even more danger, right? Like she just kind of sees what's in the moment. And like I thought that scene was so interesting because it showed like all these different sides of Ellie at the same time. Like she's somebody who can be compassionate, who wants justice for the weak, somebody who can see herself in other people, but at the same time make decisions that put everybody in danger because of this. Like she's a single issue voter. Like I don't care what happens. Like this is what I need to happen. I don't care who suffers because of that, regardless of the intention. And again, I felt like I wish the season was a little bit longer to like fully explore the change in Ellie as a character, right? And you can say that she was probably already headed this way, but like Joel dying and like the immediate feelings that she has after at least that 3-month period, like after Joel dies, shape who she is going forward throughout the rest of the story. And this is why this is one of my favorite stories in general. Like I thought nothing could come close to like Game of Thrones, and maybe I don't know if this comes close to Game of Thrones, like just as far as like full scale. Like Game of Thrones has 8 seasons.
Yeah.
All of these characters that we remember forever. And this story is essentially like 2 or 3 people that we'll remember forever, and then a bunch of secondary, characters that we still love, but
yeah,
they just don't have the same emotional attachment. But this one is so great because like you can love Ellie and not root for her at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? Playing the game, Ellie makes all these decisions that you're forced to live with and like go through with. That if you have like a 26-year-old's level of maturity, you're like, this is a shitty decision, Ellie. Like, I really don't want to do this, but you're making me do this.
Yeah.
Like, so I have to go through with it and I have to make sure we complete this, but this is dumb. And like, you're not considering A, B, and C. And you see this played out on the show through terrific A+ level performances. But like I said, this was the first episode. They did dumb shit in episode 5, right? Like her and Dina did some dumb shit too. But like, this was the first one where I'm like, it takes me back to 2020 playing the game where I'm just like, oh my God, this character that I've come to love is a shithead.
Dumb as fuck.
Yeah, it's a complete fucking shithead. And like now I have to co-sign these through my continued involvement in this game. So I thought that seemed like perfectly illustrated that. You can love Ellie and think she's a piece of shit and she's dumb as hell. As smart as she is, she can also be dumb as hell at the same time. And like you just kind of have no choice but to roll with it.
It's no wonder everyone who's played The Last of Us hasn't developed some sort of PTSD or something, because
that's all I have. I don't enjoy this. This is PTSD.
Like, why are you making me do this? Why don't I have an option? Why don't I have a choice?
Like, I would love to say, hey, no, actually, I'm gonna go back home, regroup, but like that's just not an option. It's just like full speed ahead.
Oh, damn. Mm-mm.
So we know we're getting a season 3 for sure. And then this past week, I believe Craig Mazin came out and said that they're going to need probably a season 4 to wrap this up.
Yep.
So my question, I go to Tristan for this one. No spoilers, of course. You played both games, but like, does the end of game 2 give you, is it a satisfying ending, or is there definitely room for, if they want to have a Last of Us, part 3 video game, which Neil Druckmann says don't expect that.
Yeah.
There's a room for a 3, or is it?
There's absolutely room for a 3.
Okay.
I've kind of gamed this out. I haven't seen this online. I haven't seen this in a Reddit or YouTube video. This is just me with the way that season 2 ends. Well, game 2 ends. Well, I mean, officially game 2 ends with the Joel and Ellie scene on the porch. And that's kind of like a different way as we see it in the season. Like we saw it last episode. But I'm sorry, Brittany. The way that another big thing that happens with season 2 at the end of game 2, tells me where I think they would go with like a 3 and a 4. If season 3 is going to be mostly about Abby, then I think I absolutely have a great idea without any knowledge of what season 4 would be. And if it happens like that, then I think it would be great. But we just have to see how season 3 ends. But I think I know at least the mapping out. One thing Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin have said, at least Neil Druckmann has said, is that they won't go past the end of game 2 as far as the story goes. So that they're not going to go into the future.
Right.
But I honestly think there's an avenue for them to go a little bit into the future in season 4, if they decide to. If they do, again, no spoilers, but I think there's a pathway for an excellent landing of the plane for this series in season 4.
Yeah. And Brittany, looking ahead to season 3, how interested are you in season 3, given that it'll probably be a very heavy Abby season as opposed to Ellie and Tommy and Dina? Um, are you interested in seeing that side of the storyline? How we get to what happened at the end of this episode?
I mean, it's been presented to us, and I think because I have the questions about how did she find them at the theater, what's up with the burn, like the rope burn around her neck, what's her story in all of this. I mean, uh, you don't bring in Jeffrey Wright and not give him more than 2 episode appearances. So I'm feeling like you got to do right because he voiced his character in the video game. So, do right, let him have his moment because he's fantastic at what he does. But I think to see and understand what's driving WLF with the Seraphites and the struggles that they're all encountering, and then the little hints here and there that there's an outsider in Seattle who is actively looking for Abby, gets to Nora, what happened, how did they find out about Nora, you know what I mean, and just to kind of fill those little holes. Also, can we get more clickers? As much as I don't like seeing them, I was expecting like a big ass boss clicker from the basement that we haven't seen to emerge. Or is it going to be Nora that's going to turn into the big ass clicker and just, take everyone down? You know what I mean? Like,
you just wait
I
season 3.
Just wait until season 3. Oh,
You
shit.
just wait
Okay.
season 3.
Okay. So yeah, that's kind of the buildup that I have in my mind. So yes, to see how the other side lives in those 3 days that Ellie and Dina arrived in Seattle, and I mean, they crossed paths several times, right? And yeah, I think. Do I care about Abby? Not so much. It's just the fact that like I want to see how they dealt with their problems and then the additional problems that are Ellie and Dina and whatnot. So and then also Tommy and hopefully we'll get more maybe like when Tommy and Jesse arrived, right? Because they came in on what, day 2, day 3? I can't remember anymore. But yes, to see if the sniper that we overheard on the radio taking people down, they called for backup. Like, was that indeed Tommy? Because we didn't find that out for sure. Jesse just went out on a hunch. He's like, hey, we needed to go in this direction, which was opposite from where Ellie wanted to go, which was to the aquarium. So yeah, just those little stories here and there. I actually am interested in seeing more about the Seraphites and why they do what they do. And how many wolves do they take down? Like, does Isaac die? I want to know, does he die? So yeah.
No, I do think it is interesting because like this is unlike Game of Thrones, like where Tristan, you talked about how like there's so many characters in different lands and all kinds of stuff. This is a very focused story on just a few characters, but the further we go along, we see the world is bigger than just these 3 or 4 characters. Brittany brought up something that honestly I didn't even think about in this episode. There were no clickers in this episode. And really this season was pretty light on the cordyceps. And do you think that was kind of missed? Do you think we'll make up for that in season 3? Or are the clickers just kind of they're not necessarily the main villain, right? Like they're not the main challenge. The challenge is other people. The cordyceps are just kind of in the periphery and they're always out there and who knows what could happen, but they're not like the main focus of the goal.
Also, sorry, what happened to the cordyceps that were in the pipes in Jackson? Like we just kind of like went away from that, do they ever get back?
That's what led to the invasion.
No, I understand that, but like what did they do after that invasion? Like did they just burn off everything that was in the pipes? And like we just never got a conclusion about that. And it's like, or if they ever make it back to Jackson, is Jackson still Jackson, or is it infested with everyone having been turned into cordyceps?
Well, you see them kind of rebuilding
right
after so like they're on the process of kind of building Jackson back up. We didn't get a ton of clickers, but like for me, I think it mirrors the game so much in that as you're going through the game, again, the game is 30 plus hours of gameplay, so obviously you have to kind of intersperse clickers with like the human threats, but like in the show, which is obviously more grounded, like you just kind of have to make the assumption that if so many people are congregated in an area, that they've done at least a basic job of like clearing out as many infected as possible. So you shouldn't see infected literally everywhere because that kind of minimizes the human threat. And so much of game 2 is about the human threat. Like this, like you said, there's so many different factions and so many areas. Like this is another theme that the season 2 is trying to tell you is that while you're hyper focused on this one thing, there's 1,000 different obstacles that you have to overcome just to get to that one thing. In this case, it's Ellie so focused on Abby that she's not recognizing that there's a complete war happening along with the threat of infected everywhere. So that makes it like a triple dummy mission. So I just, when I watch these episodes, I guess to me, I kind of put myself in the POV of the characters where infected is always a constant threat. Like every time you open a door, you go into a building, there's a threat of infected. So like part of the PTSD / just anxiety I get watching the show / playing the game is like every time I turn the corner, I feel like there could be infected there, or I feel like I'm going to like this conclave of, the WLF or Seraphites or, there's other different factions that you come across in game 2. Like at any turn, there could be a threat there. So like that never leaves me as a game player / show watcher. So I don't expect to see infected everywhere. Like to me, like you've done your job. Like I'm always scared of infected, like at every point. So it doesn't surprise me as much.
Okay. Brittany, do you want to see more cordyceps in season 3, or you think that'll be for season 4? Or do you think we're going to get new versions of clickers and is it bloaters, or what are they called?
Bloaters, stalkers.
Yeah, stalkers. Yeah, stalkers. That was a new thing for this season. So
yeah, it was. I'm also trying to get myself back in focus, so please ignore my hand waving. And these are not the droids you're looking for. I was taken aback by that one bloater that Tommy took down in Jackson. Right, it was a big boy, right? Big boy. But I am very curious as to learn what is in that one level in the basement at the Seattle hospital that we didn't get to see anything. We heard some roaring, of course, but we didn't get to see who or what resides there. I'm thinking it's Grey's Anatomy people. Like I'm just going to throw that out there. But I am curious. I there's definitely more to the hospital than what we saw, of course. But I mean, there's still ugly ass broccoli face motherfuckers, as I said, from season 1. So, but yeah, I could do it without the stalkers though, because that's actually kind of frightening. The stalkers in that warehouse with Dina and Ellie was actually quite frightening. So it doesn't make me want to play the game, that's for sure. But the show is so heavily revolved around this infected and how quickly it overtakes the body. We saw that with even getting the payoff with Eugene, how he described it makes you cold and it was just slowly taking over, and saw that with Nora with the spores. And it's very fascinating just to see how quickly one becomes infected. And I'm curious too if any more of these characters that we've come to love are one day going to be bitten and have to be killed as a result of being bitten.
That is something we have not really seen, though. We have not seen like a known character besides like Eugene, who we only saw in the one episode, actually, become an infected threat. So
I'll say if we go back to the hospital in season 3,
Yeah.
Especially through Abby's POV. We're gonna get an all-time episode.
Okay.
It's gonna be Nora.
No, it won't be Nora.
Oh, okay.
Nora gone.
Nora gone.
But I do think that Nora's death is part of how Abby finds the theater. I think she gets tipped. I think she finds out from Manny, who's played by Danny Ramirez, who he's kind of like the lookout. Maybe he sees something and he alerts her to the activity happening at the theater, or noticing there are people in and out. Just my guess. There's got to be some reason why she found that theater and found Tommy and Dina and of course killed Jesse and then had a gun pointed at Abby or at Ellie. Just theory. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I guess we'll get to. Is there anything else y'all want to talk about that we didn't mention in the episode?
I think overall it was a really great season. I mean, to me, there wasn't anything with Ellie's character development that truly like shocked me, in the sense of how she was progressively becoming more violent and more enraged and more determined to seek out those that killed Joel. It didn't surprise me at all. It even at the very end didn't surprise me that she would have to concede to never finding Abby, never having her revenge on Abby. It was just, you did what you did. You did some really shitty things to people and you have to live with those consequences. That should be punishment enough. But then to have it really blown up in her face with Jesse's death, and it just completely breaks her. I think that absolutely did shock me. I was just like, oh, okay, because she's been an annoying ass brat this entire time, and I was just really sick of it. And it seemed like Dina was slowly changing her, and Jesse reasoned with her, and it's like, just listen to these people, and then to see one of the two people who spouts wisdom to her die that quickly, and she's just like, how much more can she take at this point? How much more can she take? So that the ending did surprise me greatly, and especially her willing to surrender herself to Abby and probably come to her untimely death. That was actually quite shocking. And Bella Ramsey, damn, throughout this whole season, as Tristan said in our chat, Bella Ramsey, you will get an Emmy.
She is cooking.
Cooking.
High level. For me, damn, I lost my whole train of thought. I'll say for me, just the way that they've kind of validated my trust with like deviating from the story, like key moments, finding like the right times to like expand on a character story. Like I said, we didn't really get enough chance in the game to like explore Jesse's motivations and who he is and like what makes him the mature leader that he is. And, obviously it's unfortunate that his story doesn't make it all the way, but like, this is also a world that they're forced to live in, that any wrong move, for him is just rushing through a door, like could be the end. So I do appreciate the adaptation and the way they continue to adapt the story, because I feel like the story is so much more than just like clickers and bloated and there's so many themes that are just playing around at the same time with the story that they do a really great job of like hammering home through these relationships, because I think that's the best part of The Last of Us, is the relationships between the characters, because that's the us part. So much of this is about survival and community, good and bad. Like, we see the good parts of community in Jackson, we see the bad parts of it with Seraphites, and like how one side's evil can be one side's justification. So another great season. I wish I was getting like at least 2 more episodes of this season.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see the vision for season 3 and possibly season 4 of like how this story continues to evolve, and just like the different ways other people can fall in love with this story. Because as much as this story is Joel and Ellie, like its origins, you can tell the story with so many different characters. And that's what makes the game so captivating, is that you spend so much time away from who you thought were the titular characters. You realize that all these characters are going through the same thing, and it kind of binds all of them together, even in different circumstances, and it makes the story that much more better. So great season. I enjoyed covering it, talking about it, thinking about it at every moment. So I'll spend the next 1 to 2 years like looking at every Reddit, every YouTube video, every Easter egg video. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And you're right. It'll probably be 2027 before we see season 3, I would guess, because as I've heard Craig Mason say on podcasts that, they make movies, not necessarily TV episodes of television. They make these, these are very elaborate setups for all these episodes. And I just want to say, like, we've made a lot of comparisons to Game of Thrones with this show. And I think one of the comparisons I felt it in this episode especially was any character could die at any moment. Like the stakes and the threats are always there. And I really like appreciate that for a show that much like Game of Thrones, I did not read the books, so I had no idea what was going to happen. I have not played these games. I have no idea what's going to happen. And I do appreciate the fact that like in this episode, Ellie could have died twice. Maybe she did die at the end of this episode. We don't know. We'll have to check out Abby's point of view in season 3 to see what actually happened before that crash to black screen that we saw. But yeah, like Tristan said, this is just such a great show. I enjoy rewatching the episodes of the show, which sometimes rewatching these shows to do the podcast is actual work. Feels like work. This show, it was a pleasure. Like I every time I rewatched it, I got more out of it than I got on the first view, which maybe that's understandable. But like sometimes, like, if you're enjoying it, you're looking for more things. You're trying to learn more, trying to come up with different theories, and just enjoying the show is something to be said for really anything nowadays. So I really enjoyed the show. Fortunately, it was only 7 episodes, whereas season 1 was 9 episodes. So we'll see what happens with season 3. Maybe we'll get a few more. Maybe the strikes of a couple of years ago maybe had a lot to do with the length this season. Maybe. I'm not sure. I'm just purely speculating. But hopefully we'll get maybe 9 or 10 episodes for season 3 whenever that comes our way. So I guess that about does it. Brittany, do you have any other final thoughts before we get out of here? I'm
still wildly impressed that this show is based off a video game, and I keep forgetting it because it's such great storytelling. So it's been really good. I've been very upset about certain aspects of this show that Tristan has withheld from me. You jerk.
So
Thank
much
you for
more
being on the show.
I
know.
Anybody like that?
Man, I know. Just like I sent you that reel of, the feeling known around the world when Joel was killed, and it's just like, you withheld this information from me. Why? Yeah. But man, the penultimate was a banger, and that I will rewatch over and over again and just live in that moment, unfortunately, because apparently I like to punish myself. So that being said, great season. I'm looking forward to season 3 whenever that may come out. Hopefully it won't take forever and a day. And I somehow, can we make Daddy Pedro come back? Because that'd be great. Just saying.
I don't expect that's going to happen, but you never know.
Yeah.
So that about does it for our review of episode 7, the finale of season 2 of The Last of Us. Now that you know what we thought about the episode, we want to know what you thought about it. And Brittany, what's the best way for people to let us know?
Well, just like King B. Johnson and Yesenia did, join us for our live chats on any of our pods. We love the engagement. We love to hear your thoughts in real time. We do appreciate y'all taking the time out of your evening to join us for our instant reaction pod. We haven't done one of these in quite some time, and it's been fun just to get this out here and talk The Last of Us. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 500 subscribers. Make sure you hit the like button and the notification bell. That way you know the next time we go live, which will be probably this coming Wednesday, I believe, Justin. We're looking at doing an anniversary pod for Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Yep,
We'll be
10-year
sharing
anniversary. Yeah.
10-year anniversary. We'll be sharing our top 10 moments from that movie. So join us for Wednesday. So like I said, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And we're also going to come back. Amber and I will be back to discuss the last 2 episodes of The Handmaid's Tale, the final season. I am so excited because that penultimate episode was whoa. So join us. Also, you can find all of our social media links in the description box down below, and also check out our audio podcast available to you on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Give us a follow, give us a 5-star rating.
Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate it. So for Brittany and for Tristan, I'm Justin saying thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Have a good night. Bye-bye.